So that brings me to introducing now our moderator for this session, who is Stacey Cleary of CP Achieve. She'll be facilitating this discussion with our lived experience group today. So with that, I'll hand over to Stacey to introduce the other people. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Oliver. Again, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm presenting today from the Wurundjeri lands. I'm a physiotherapist and a researcher with CP Achieve at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute, and I'm thrilled to be here today to talk about living a good life with CP and how medication might play a part in that during adulthood. While the initial injury or disturbance to the brain that causes CP doesn't change over someone's lifespan, there can be changes to the body, such as joint range or muscle length, that make movement more challenging. Adults with CP can also experience changes with their pain, with spasticity, and with fatigue. Treatments and medications might need to be altered over time to address these changing needs. So today we have three wonderful panelists and a trusted supporter who'll be discussing their experiences with medications as adults, as a support for them to live a good life. Our three panelists are from different parts of Australia, are at different life stages, have different types of CP, and have different experiences of investigating and trialling medications to support them. And I'm really excited for you to meet them now. So one by one, they'll introduce themselves, and I'd like to start with Madison.
Thank you, Stacey. Hi, my name's Madison Heady. I live in Perth, WA. I am 23 years old and I live with a form of cerebral palsy called ataxia. CP, my form of CP affects my whole body, and therefore every task that I do is quite a challenge. I'm a very passionate advocate for people living with disabilities. My goal is to educate students and the wider community about disability, spreading the word of inclusion and encouraging people to see the ability. Today, my mother is joining me as I'm still learning about my medical journey, and she has a different point of view and some great insights.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Andrea Heady. I'm Madison's mum. Madison was my first child, and unfortunately we had a very difficult birth, and it took a long time to get a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. At the time, she was the only child in our family that was having difficulties, and it was quite a challenge to understand, learn and be comfortable with the challenges that we were facing and that came with living with a disability. So Madison has asked me here today to give an insight onto some of the medical history from when she was a little bit older and the transition from paediatrics into the adult system of healthcare.
Wonderful. Thank you both for joining us. Debbie, can you please introduce yourself to us now?
Yes, absolutely. And Maddie, can I just say I love your choice of shirt colour. Pink is my favourite colour, so well done. Hi everyone, my name is Debbie Heron and I'm just about to turn 40 years old. So I'm a little bit older than Maddie, and I'm married and I'm a mum of 3 primary school aged boys. So my house is usually a bomb site. I live in sunny Queensland in a place called Ipswich, And my type of cerebral palsy is spastic right side hemiplegia. So it affects the full right side of my body, my arm, and my leg. What I'm passionate about is disability, but also I'm really passionate generally about kindness and paying forward the support that I've received in my life and sharing information that can help others. I think that we need more kindness in our world. What about you, Wade?
Well, thanks, Deb. My name is Wade Costley, and I'm here in cloudy Melbourne, Australia. I am 54 years young, so like you, Deb, slightly older than Madison. The type of CP I have is spastic diplegia, so that basically affects both my legs and a little bit of my upper body as well. What I'm passionate about is increasing awareness about cerebral palsy across all aspects of society. And I'm also a board member at Cerebral Palsy Australia as well, doing this. And I'm also passionate about traveling around the world and exploring new places, Stacey.
Thank you all for those wonderful introductions. It's really great to have you on board and here. So given that we'll be talking about medical treatment today, I'd just like to start by saying that today's webinar is provided for educational purposes only, and it's not a substitute for medical advice. So please consult your personal medical professionals and healthcare providers for any advice. Also, we'd all just like to say, I do not, and no member of the panel has any financial relationship with medical practitioners prescribing or pharmaceutical companies manufacturing medications, and we have no conflicts of interest to declare. So, onto our conversation. It frequently comes up in research and in clinical practice that adults with cerebral palsy want to hear from other adults with cerebral palsy about life, about navigating changing bodies, and about living well with CP. So we're here today to listen to Maddie, Deb, and Wade generously share some of their journeys as adults with CPs. And my first question to each of you is, what does living a good life look like or mean to you at the moment in the stage you're in?
Thank
Do you want to go for it, Maddie?
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. To me, living a good life as a 23-year-old is about having good balance. It's really important to me that I participate in all the same things my peers do, for example, work, travel, exercise, and adventure. But in order for me to do that, I have to prioritize my symptoms of my CP, which means I have to prioritize things like sleeping, eating, so that I can live my life to the fullest, just like any 23-year-old. What does living a good life mean to you, Debbie?
Thanks, Maddie. So, as I mentioned, I'm a mum of 3 very active young boys, and they're all still in primary school. So, I've got a lot happening with school and sports and activities that they still need their mum involved in. I think it won't be long before the teenage years hit and they want nothing to do with me. So, I feel like I've got to make the most of it now. I also work full time and I really love what I do. So, living a good life for me is being about being as mobile and active and just as present as I possibly can be at this stage in my life. What about you, Wade?
For me, at this stage, I try to remain as active as I can be. As we all know, we tend to slow down a bit as we get older. So it's important, especially for those of us with cerebral palsy, to keep moving as much as we can and to remain active to maintain that optimal quality of life for as long as we can.
Those sound like some pretty good descriptions or definitions to me. And I know that in preparation for this webinar, we talked about how that picture of living a good life for you can drive and does drive some of your medical treatment. And I guess we've talked about particular instances that have driven you each to seek medical treatment. Can we dive right in? Can you please tell us about one of those instances that led to you seeking medical advice and medical treatment?
Sure. I'll go first if that's okay. A really big symptom of my ataxic CP is the excessive and uncontrollable spasms and shaking. These symptoms are exasperated by emotion. I am an extremely active person, and through the years, as my physical activity has tremendously increased, we've also found that my spasms and shakiness has worsened. And then this results in extreme fatigue and other symptoms, including worsening my slurred speech because of that fatigue, which has led to us seeking different medical treatment.
And
what made you seek medical treatment, Debbie?
Yeah, well, for me, in the last decade, I really noticed a decrease in my daily energy levels and my overall mobility. So, I mean, I guess over this time period, I've also had 3 kids, so that's taken a bit of a toll on the old body. But in seeking out my treatment, I did so because of pain. And when I talk about pain, I'll just explain what that means to me. So it's this tightness in my arm, and then this kind of aching pain in like my upper back, shoulders, and neck, which can really turn into quite a searing pain as well. And this was really a daily pain that was just getting me down, making me feel really tired and just off basically. So I was still doing monthly physio, but it just wasn't something that could ward off that daily ache.
Maddie, do you think we can go back to you and just ask a few more questions about what happened when you sought medical treatment? So when you had these symptoms worsening, and you saw your doctors, what type of medication was recommended to you?
The medication that was recommended to me was...
I only know it by Madapar, but it does have its generic name. I will find it for you.
So it's an anti-Parkinsonian medication, isn't it?
Yes, that's the one.
Wow.
But
during this time, I was transitioning from pediatric to the adult facilities, which was a huge and challenging process. So I would like to pass this one on to my mother, as she has a bit more of a greater understanding.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Andrea.
during the transition to the adult facility from paediatrics, Madison's neurologist suggested that we try some new medication to slow the shakiness during times of her high activities. He mentioned that it wouldn't stop the shaking in its completeness, and it wouldn't stop the spasms in total either, but it would reduce them during times of high stress and physical activities. Madison's at that stage was starting to do a lot of running and physical activity and competing, and wanted to do national championships and things like that. So he said that it was used for Parkinson's patients, and it had a 1 to 4 hour window of performance. It was going to be taken in pill form, but there wasn't a lot of other people with cerebral palsy taking this medication at the time. So it was quite a interesting time to try and figure out how this was actually going to be relevant to Madison and how it was going to affect her.
Yeah, I can imagine that was quite the surprise to hear that you'd be taking an anti-Parkinson's medication and you were a teenager, right? So what sort of process did you go through together? Because I know you're in that transition phase, Madison, to decide whether or not to take this medication, which was pretty new.
It wasn't really a huge detailed trial as such, because there was no one with ataxic CP really that had trialed this medication. Obviously, my new neurologist from the adult facilities saw a lot of Parkinson's patients that had similar symptoms to me. So I discussed it with him, obviously, and he suggested it. My local GP and, of course, my parents, and they were happy for me to trial it. Obviously, they couldn't tell if it was beneficial or not, because nobody with ataxic CP had actually trialed this medication before. But after a while, we discovered that it helped with not one but multiple of my CP symptoms, so we just continued it.
Amazing. And we'll talk more in the next question about some more of those benefits, which obviously we're very glad to hear that there were a number of. Thank you. Can we go back to you, Deb, please? So the instance that you had increasing pain that was causing significant issues with how you were living day to day. What process did you go through when you sought advice?
Mine's quite interesting because it's a little bit different, obviously, to Maddie. So I actually hadn't been in contact with any kind of CP specialists since I was maybe 15 or 16, back under the old block funding system. I see a GP for coughs and colds, but that's about it. But back in the day, I remembered that I did have, splints for my arms and legs. So I thought, hey, maybe I'll go and give that a try. So I went in and I had a chat to a lady about that. And she was really wonderful and just very upfront with me. She just went, I'm really sorry, but your tone is just way too high to make a splint useful at all. Like we couldn't even get a splint on my hand and get it done up. It was that bad. So she goes to me, oh, have you considered Botox? And I was thinking, oh, I don't think the old crow's feet are that bad, but you know, I'll probably look into it in the next 5 years or whatever. But what she was actually saying was Botox, you know, for the arm and the leg. And I'd never really thought about it.
So you hadn't thought about it before. How did you decide whether to go ahead or not?
Yeah, good question. So I didn't have any friends at the time that had Botox done recently. But honestly, I just thought, you know what? Surely it can't get any worse than this. I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm not a fan of needles by any means, but I think I was just at that peak frustration point and I was open to try anything. So for me, I go every 3 months. Everyone would be different. Some people just go once a year. And I have like 14 or 15 needles in my arms and legs and back and neck. Very quick, 15 minutes, and I'm all done.
Wow, such an unexpected journey and outcome for you, right?
Absolutely.
Compared to a splint. So, Wade, your situation is quite different again. Could you please, share with us what instance led you to seeking advice?
Sure, happy to, Stacey. Similar to Deb, in my, young adulthood, I really had no contact with medical professionals regarding my CP specifically. I had an international career where I was living and working in several different countries, and working quite a bit. So I really had, I didn't seek any medical advice regarding CP because I felt fine. My job required quite long hours and quite a few long haul flights around the world. And so I started to see a slow, gradual decline in how easy it was to walk. And then it all came to a head one night when I was disembarking on a Qantas flight, and I just collapsed. And my leg said, "No more, we're done."
Gosh, pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
So
I don't recommend doing that, by the way.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. So what happened when you talked to your doctor, and what kind of recommendations were you given?
So yeah, I went to my GP and he examined me, and what he noticed was that my leg muscles, specifically in my thighs, were in constant spasm. So when they are in constant spasm, you can't really put any pressure on them, and that was inhibiting my ability to walk. So he did some research on the fly, I might add, and came across a drug called dantrolene, which is a skeletal muscle relaxant. So he thought that might work.
So your doctor, did that research on the fly. It was obviously a pretty new sort of thing. What process did you go through to decide whether to take it?
Yeah, so in this particular situation, it was quite serious because I still had to work and all of that. So I was looking for basically anything that would help resolve the issue. So at the time, I could walk about 100 meters, and then that was it, and that wasn't going to do it. So he had explained basically, how it would work, the dosage and all of that. And, from what he told me, I took that on board and made the decision, okay, I'll go ahead and give it a go. It's not that I always follow his advice. For example, one time he suggested that I start playing darts at the pub to try to sharpen my fine motor skills. I didn't take that one on board because I thought it might be a good chance that I would be endangering the other club patrons. So yeah, I didn't go with that. But Dancer Lane was a good win.
Glad to hear it, which is a nice segue into our next question. So you all sought treatment or sought advice because there was an impact on you living your good life. So what's been the impact because of this treatment?
Wade, I just want to say I don't think Mum or anyone else who knows me for that matter would let me go near darts.
Yeah. Good
Me
call,
neither, Maddie.
Maddie. I wouldn't recommend it either. Yeah.
For me, this type of medication has changed my life dramatically. When I've taken this medication compared to when it's not in my system, like I have more energy because my spasms, my shakiness decrease slightly. I can, because of that, I can make coffee at work instead of shaking the hot chocolate powder all over the customer or all over me. I can write my name, the date, or a sentence or two without scribbling all over the page. And without the medication in my system, I cannot complete some of the fine motor tasks like doing up jewelry, etc. Because my spasm shakiness decreases slightly, I'm not fatigued from all the shaking. I have more energy. I find that I can sustain the day without needing some quiet time to break up the day and regain more energy. And I also find that I have more energy for extra activities like sports. The cons of this medication is it can make me fatigue once it's left my system. For example, if I don't take the medication after 4 hours, I can sometimes crash or go on a downhill because of the fatigue and take longer to do certain tasks. Sometimes I may even need an afternoon and a nap in the afternoon to re-energize. I have to take the medication correctly. It's all about timing For example, I have to take it on an empty stomach at least half an hour before food to get the maximum benefit. This is important if I have to take medication during the middle of the day or take a second dose if I'm having a day that's very activity filled.
Wow. Sounds like some incredible benefits, and then still quite a bit to balance as well. Thank you for sharing with us. Debbie, can we ask you, has there been an impact on you living the life that you want to live?
Yeah, absolutely has. So I can feel and I can also see the benefits within about 3 days. In terms of feeling the benefits for me, it's just that ache and that pain goes away. And in terms of what I can see straight away, like I can see my arms straightening out. Like I'll come to my husband and my kids and go, check it out, look what I can do. And, you know, I've never had that before. So it's just absolutely amazing. Also, my posture gets a little bit straighter, and that tripping over nothing, it's reduced as well. So because of this reduction in my pain and having looser muscles, I do have more energy, and I honestly just feel better in myself. There's just this great difference, even just in my daily mood. I will say though, continuing physio has been pretty important because obviously Botox is a toxin and it can weaken your muscles. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
I do love that, Maddie said that her medication helps with her fatigue levels, so then she's able to do more sport, and you're saying that there's an impact on your posture and then you're doing more activity. I'm liking that. The medication is helping support your movement and your physical activity as well. That's really cool. What about you, Wade? What's been the impact of taking your
first,
medication?
I'm really happy to find out that I'm not the only one with CP who trips over nothing. I thought that was just me, but in regards to your question, Stacey, the dantrolene was a real game changer because it basically helps reduce muscle stiffness and spasticity, thereby improving my overall mobility. It allows for my body movements to effectively become more fluid, and it reduces the stiffness in my leg muscles. So what that means, so for example, if I'm in a movie or a long dinner, when I stand up, my legs aren't stiff, I'm not as prone to falling and that sort of thing. So it's really good. Because it's taken orally, it impacts my whole body. So similar with Maggie's medicine, my hands are a bit more stable, so I don't redecorate the floor with, coffee out of a mug anymore, which is really a benefit, a pro of the medication. It also, I exercise using a recumbent tricycle, and because my muscles aren't as stiff, my muscles can work together more efficiently. So that's another pro with it. I'd say I take it orally, so I can then just have a telehealth appointment with my GP to get a repeat medication. I don't need to go in for it. It's on the PBS as well. But because it is a muscle relaxant, similar to Debbie and Botox, to really get the most out of it, you need to make sure you're exercising as well, because it does tend to weaken the muscle, and that's how it effectively relaxes it. And also, when you first start taking it, it might make you drowsy as well until your body adapts to it.
Yeah, so the medication is a part of your overall health management.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And Debbie and Wade, if you're both tripping less and falling less, that's got to have a huge impact on what besides your risk of injuries and fractures and things, how does that make your confidence feel?
I feel amazing, because in my house, my boys and my husband, when I trip over, they yell out, "Oh, Mum's had a sniper attack," because they call it like a sniper. So there's less sniper attacks now, which is
Excellent.
great.
Excellent. Nobody wants to live in a war. No.
And for me, Stacey, yeah, it just, because it allows me to move around, more efficiently, and get not as stiff. That's the main benefit of it. I mean, because growing up, when I wasn't taking it, obviously I get really stiff, and it was around the time that E.T. the movie came out. Yes, I'm that old. And so my family said that when I would stand up, I would kind of walk like E.T. So within my family, it actually became a term. Oh, Wade's E.T. because he's been sitting down for too long. So, yeah, it's great to not have that stiffness anymore, and as a result, not be as prone to falling as much.
Absolutely. So for each of you, oh, sorry, you go, Maddie.
I must say that before my neurologist suggested Madapa, I was eating concrete. So these two teeth aren't mine.
Oh,
yes.
there you go.
I also have a bad reputation of having too many falls and too many concussions. So, but now thankfully the medication that I'm on also decreases that element as well. So I feel you, Debbie and Wade.
Yeah, absolutely, Madison. I'm sure Debbie as well. We've both had our tastes of concrete in different areas, and can tell what type of concrete it is. On our palate. We're effectively concrete connoisseurs.
Let
I
me
would say.
tell you, it does not taste great.
No, it doesn't. But some taste better than others. So, yes.
Let's remove that tasting experience as much as possible. I'm glad that it's being lessened. So for each of you across these processes, which have been pretty different, what went well for you? And looking back, what would you like to change?
Well, for me, it was quite overwhelming with all the information being presented to me in complex medical terms. And as I was only 16, I was still trying to come to terms with the transition from pediatric to the adult facilities, and especially in particular what CP means to me as an adult. But Mum would probably really like to also share her point of view, as she has a greater understanding of this time and what would have been beneficial for us during that time.
So for me, yes, Madison's right. It was a very overwhelming time for her, because you go from the very happy, smiley, considerate children's hospital and physios and all that sort of stuff, and then you're transitioning to the adult system, which is a lot harsher, and things aren't presented very clearly for you. And there wasn't a lot of expertise out there with this medication for CP, and so it was quite a blind trial. So I would have liked to have, someone to talk to other than just a neurologist, that maybe could have helped with some explanations as to what it would improve, and what were the side effects that she might sort of see in real life terms. Because for us, I had to keep a journal myself that I suggested to myself to try and figure out how to work the medication. It wasn't told, the best times, and that there would be fatigue after one dose, and then you'd have to redose, and what short time frame that was. So it was keeping track of the medication, and then
remembering to take it,
and all that sort of stuff that took us a while to get our heads around. So having better support that way would have been a lot more helpful. But we finally got there, and we've got everything down pat now. So it's been a very welcome. Almost. Have the occasional mishap where we forget, but but it has become a very welcomed addition.
And what if you guys have talked to us outside of this webinar? You're such beautiful supports for each other, and that teamwork has been a really significant thing, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Getting through a lot. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we're the best of friends, and we're definitely, if there's...
We have our moments.
But if you have somebody that is a trusted supporter that you can speak honestly and frankly with, I think that's really important.
Thank you. Debbie, what about you? What went well? What would you like to change?
Yeah, well, I mean, the process of the Botox has worked really well for me. What would I like to change? I think it has just been, being able to hear these experiences. So I kind of wish I'd met Maddie and Andrea and Wade earlier, because you can't beat real life experiences, and just being able to talk to people that get it, and you can just ask those questions that might be burning in your mind. So just having more real life experiences from other adults, so that I could have a better understanding of what I could explore.
And that's why we're here, isn't it? Which is so wonderful. Yeah. And Wade.
Yeah, for me, I think, everything about, taking the dancerline and getting used to it went really well. In addition to the benefits that I already talked about, it also helped me sleep better, because, my muscles are more relaxed. It allowed them to recover more overnight while I slept. So it's been a real game changer overall on, the improving the quality of my overall life. The only thing is, I started taking it when I would have been in my late 30s. And so I wish I would have known about these options earlier in life. because these medications that we're talking about can be so helpful and how we live our lives, but also, as we talked about, make us more, I guess, secure, when we're moving around and that sort of thing.
Thank you for sharing. Just a reminder to everyone attending the webinar, we have a question and answer function at the top of the Zoom screen. Oh, sorry, Teams, wrong medium. So if you'd like to enter a question there, we're coming up to the question time. So before we head into that, to conclude this panel segment, what are some brief words of advice that you'd like to share with audience members? And Madison, can you take us away, please?
Oh, for me, I would probably say to the lived experience members, try your hardest to advocate for yourself, and remember that the doctors are there to try and help you live your best life. Try to work together, build a relationship where you feel comfortable enough to discuss how you're really feeling. Communicate your challenges, your struggles. Sometimes this is the difference between finding a treatment that is right and works for you. It all comes down to being brave, being open, honest, and communicating the honest truth to your team. That would be my advice.
And so much wonderful advice in such a short time. Thank you, Maddie. Debbie, I'm not sure how you're going to follow that, but can you try, please?
Oh, I'll try. Look, just along the same vein, I guess my advice is, yes, cerebral palsy is permanent, but it doesn't mean that you have to accept an experience of low energy or increasing pain. So I would just say, don't accept the status quo and stay curious.
Wonderful. Good. And Wade, last but not least.
Yes, I would say it's much along those same lines. As you said, Stacey, at the beginning, cerebral palsy is a lifelong condition, but how it affects you can change throughout your life, from young adult to grumpy old guy like myself. So don't be afraid to reach out to a health professional who specializes in cerebral palsy and ask them what you can do to continue living your best life, whether it be participating in a new sport, medication, new physio, whatever. Like, explore your options, because it's your life. So and there are people out there that can really, they know about these things, and they can really help you improve or maintain the quality of life that you have.
Another excellent summary. Thank you, Wade. So visiting a health practitioner and discussing new or changing treatment options is a process with many steps, as you've heard today with our 3 panelists and 1 trusted supporter. There are lots of elements to consider before you decide on a path forward. So as we wrap up the panel discussion and move on to Q&A, the panel and I would just like to emphasize the following things. If you're discussing a change in your treatment or you're exploring a new medication with your medical practitioner, remember that it's important for you to share your goals and your expectations so that they can be discussed. Your treating doctor will need to talk you through the pros and cons of a change in treatment or a new medication for you and your situation. And you can ask questions about any of this. It's your body, your health, and your choice. And you need to be able to understand what you're deciding on. If you don't understand, you can ask for the information to be explained in a way that suits you. And you can also reach out to trusted supports to help you understand or make the decision. In instances where it's not an emergency, you might find it helpful to take some time to consider your decision. And if you need to, make sure you ask for this and take the time you need. So thank you, wonderful panelists, for sharing with us as you have. We've got a bit of time for question and answer now, so I'm just going to open that little tab up. The first question I think I'll ask to Deb. It's from Anonymous. You discussed the use of Botox and it being re-administered once or twice a year. Does this frequency vary depending on the age of the person? And I can help with the answer if we need to.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know. Some people, might have to have it once or twice a year. For me, I do it every 3 months. And that was trial and error. So we had it and then we just waited to see what happened with my body. So I think it does go with your age and kind of like how you process it. Would that be right?
Yeah, different people, different tolerances, different metabolisms, all sorts of different things. And as we highlighted at the start, this is your experiences and your examples, and yeah, people will need to go to their doctors to trial things for themselves, won't they? Yeah, I hope that helps, Anonymous. This question here, this question says, my daughter with CP is only 5 and is able to describe how she's feeling. Do you think pain medication and management is needed in childhood? I think that, shall I take this one quickly? Or would anyone like to say?
No, I'm happy for you to take that, Stacey. That's probably more your expertise.
Obviously, our panel today is focusing on adulthood, but I think some of the principles are the same. So I think I think we would just say to make sure that your daughter's experiences and your experience as her mother is shared with your treating health professionals and discussed so that her needs can be really well met. And pain is definitely an experience of children with CP, and the panelists are all nodding their head.
Yes.
And there are some incredible medical and allied health researchers who are doing some fantastic work in this area. So yeah, that's an encouraging point, I think. Rowan says, thank you for your generosity. Listening to you all has been incredibly helpful. I'm wondering if a brief summary dot point of the various medications and treatments discussed today can be shared to attendees via email. Let's see how we go. The webinar itself will be available online, so you can probably look at that afterwards. We have a question here. Someone has an 8-year-old son who they describe as non-verbal, and they've said level 4 or 5 CP and a vision impairment. Would you have any advice for us?
What advice would you give?
I would say, that with, I think, regardless of your GM, FCS level of CP, it's crucial that you work very closely with your allied health professionals, and that includes not only neurologists, but neurophysios, occupational therapists, species, and so forth, so that you can have a comprehensive plan throughout childhood.
That's a good point. And I would just add to that hopefully some of our stories today can give you that, I guess, insight that people with cerebral palsy, no matter what level they have, can live a good life and fulfilling life. And there's lots to look forward to.
Yes.
Indeed. Wade,
sorry, go ahead.
Do you want to finish?
I was just going to say, following on from what Deb just said, I think, the three of us here with CP in this webinar are proof that you can live very fulfilling lives, and just by, also have CP. So, yeah.
I've got one more question, and then just looking at the time, we might wrap it up. There's been issues of medication supply and a lack of medication supply in Australia across the last few years. Has this had impact on any of you? And if so, how did you manage it?
Yes, it has had an impact on the medication I take. That's a really good question, Stacey. So, so a lot of critical medications, and they don't need to be necessarily related to treatment of CP, but medications in general are not manufactured here within Australia. So they're manufactured overseas. And so due to supply chain issues, and as we experienced during COVID, there are times where there's a shortage of the medication, or even worse, the supply can run out. So that has happened to me. So, but in this specific case, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, TGA, they do have a database online where you can look up your medication to see if there is a shortage or not. In addition to that, if the supply is not there or you're unable to source it, you can go to your GP and talk to them. They can then fill out a form which is called the Special Access Scheme. It can also be found on the TGA website. They fill that out. They submit that to the TGA. It basically allows you or your pharmacist to get that certain medication from an alternate supplier, so you can continue to take it.
Thank you, Wade. That's glad you've got it, and those are some good procedures to know about.
Yes, I mean, regardless, I mean, it's for any critical medication, so you can find them on that TGA website.
Madison, can we ask an entirely unrelated question to finish off? I think that there might be a special friend who's sitting at your feet and who's been super well behaved this whole time. Can we meet him? There. There's a beautiful way to finish. Hi, Bolt.
Hi, Bolt.
Hello, Bolt.
I thought you might have been hearing him snore just then.
No, he's been very well behaved, and I hope he gets a treat.
And I hope that this webinar has been informational for him as well. So.
Definitely. So we are all out of time now, and that concludes our Q&A segment. Thank you all so much for sharing your journeys and contributing and being a part of this discussion. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and I'm going to hand the digital microphone to Oliver now, who will wrap things up for us. Thanks, Oliver.
Thanks, Stacey. As you say, it was a really insightful discussion, so I'm glad we were able to share it with so many people today. And it will be available as a video recording later on My CP Guide. So if you're not familiar with My CP Guide, it's a website that's totally free to use, and basically it is an information hub all about cerebral palsy. The goal being to make it easier for people with cerebral palsy and their families and supporters and any professionals that work with people with cerebral palsy to learn more about different topics relating to the condition. So if you're not previously familiar with the site, please check it out. It's at mycpguide.org.au. This webinar we've put on today is just one of a series of webinars that's being presented by My CP Guide. The next one next month is going to be about aging with cerebral palsy, and will similarly be a group presentation like this one was today. So please keep an eye out for that if you're following us on Facebook or LinkedIn, or you're on our newsletter email list, which you can sign up for free also at mycpguide.org.au. So thanks again, everyone. And with that, I'll conclude this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you all. Thanks so much.
Yeah.